I want to call us to focus in on something that I think will be important for all of us, but I think it's important actually to recognize on a grad night. Because our world is hurting right now. Our country is hurting right now. And as graduates, as you are launched from high school, as you are released from Y Group, as you head to the workforce or to college or wherever you're headed, there are a couple things you're going to need to be able to do really well. Number one, you're going to need to be able to step into the brokenness that we see in our world with the love and hope of Jesus, right? Like he gives us an answer to the brokenness in our world, but he also gives us the humility to walk in a way that man, we know that we aren't that answer, right? And so we want to be able to step into issues that are hard and that are messy and that we don't have all the answers to. And then the other thing we want to do is you need to be able to figure out what it looks like to learn from someone else's perspective, to learn from someone who's had a different set of experiences than you. Man, God is so much bigger than we think he is, right? And the way he interacts with us in our faith is so much bigger. And so one of the things that we hope you've learned in Y Group is to get a bigger, better picture of who God is. But we want to expand that even more for you. And a lot of that requires listening and learning from each other. And so we wanted to demonstrate that tonight as we approach this issue of racial injustice that is tearing our country apart in many ways, that is hurting so many of our hearts right now. We wanted to pause and say, wait a second, we don't have all the answers, but it's important enough to address. And I want to say, and we want to say as a youth group, that my experience doesn't answer all these questions. We need to learn from the experience from others and how they walk through this. And so I want to welcome on one of our Waterbury Y Group leaders that you all know well, that you've seen on here before. I'm going to welcome on Charneil here. And so we're going to transfer over here. We'll see how good I am at this.
Hey.
I did it. I muted myself, Charneil. It happened. I hadn't done that for 2 weeks, and I finally muted myself again. Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you here to talk to us. It's not the reason we want you to have to be here to talk to us, but I'm honored that you're willing to join us. And I just want to ask a couple questions and hear from you. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the first question. Man, when we talked about this, my heart hurts because of the racial injustice that we see in our world, because of what we are facing as a society right now, because of the hurt that George Floyd and his family and so many others are feeling. And your heart hurts too. I know your heart hurts. But can you help me understand how the way my heart hurts right now might be a little different than the way your heart hurts?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're all sort of sad right now. I think we're all feeling a lot of different things and feeling a lot of different things differently right now. But the best way to kind of describe how I feel and how a lot of people are feeling is to tell a story.
Okay.
And I know my youth group kids know I love telling stories, especially ones about me. But I remember I was 6 years old and running around my neighborhood with a group of friends. And I ran with a whole bunch of different types of friends. They were Latino and white and Asian. And so we were just a wild, rambunctious bunch. And I was running through my neighborhood, and my grandma was watching us from the back porch. And as we were running through a specific backyard, my grandma stopped me. And when grandma yells, you listen. And so I turned around and said, what's going on? And she said, don't go through that yard. And at 6 years old, you don't understand why, because everyone else just ran through that yard. And so she had to come to me, and she looked me in my eyes and just said, hey, sometimes people will treat you differently because of the way you look. And I didn't understand that. I was 6 years old. It didn't make any sense. Yeah. And she said, it's going to happen. And those people feel differently about you because of the way you look, and us because of the way we look. And so, at 6 years old, you hold that, but you don't really know what to do with it. But as I got older, and I started having more experiences, you start to slowly realize that some people are treated differently than others, and that my treatment was different than others. And you see it in things like when people step off an elevator because they just magically remember this was their floor, or grab their purse when you're nearby, or their kids, things like that, or things people say, or being called a racial slur. My first day of college, just walking to the student center. And so you start to notice things like that. And what it is, it's more of a sense of deep, hurt and lack of worth that starts to kind of drudge up in you. It feels like inadequacy. It feels like no matter how well you do anything, no matter how much you smile, or even like me, if you share God's word, that people are going to look at you and see the worst. And so it's this deep feeling of not measuring up, and constantly feeling that when things like this happen, that it's always going to feel like this, or that it's going to be a constant kind of process of teaching people and understanding, and for me even to show people grace in the conversations that we have, and to not be too pointed or too angry or too bitter. So I feel like that's really the difference, is that it's this deep personal ache for me.
Yeah, it's I hurt, but it's the personal level is a different thing. And it's not my shared experience. And so thank you for sharing that. I guess my other question is, if you could share something, if you could help your friends at church understand, or maybe even the grads tonight understand something, what would it be, right? Like, you can't help them understand everything right now, but but if there's something, what does that look like?
I love to celebrate differences in people. I love weirdos. I love people who are out of control. That's why I do youth group. It's because I know that teenagers are wild, and that's what makes you guys awesome. And so I know that sometimes as a church, as Christians, we talk about being one big family, and I think sometimes we think that means we all have to be the same. And even if you take some time right now and look at your own families on Thanksgiving or Christmas, you're all different sizes, heights, hair colors, styles, the preferences of music. We're all different types of people that come together under one thing. But that doesn't mean that we ask everyone to be uniform. And so I would say one thing I would like people to know is that I want you to embrace the differences. I want you to walk with people who don't talk like you, or look like you, or maybe sing like you, or like the music you like. Just because I know that when you know a lot more about people, you tend to love them better. My favorite poet, Maya Angelou, one of my favorite writers, she says, when you know better, you do better. And to take it back to the word, Paul says, that we all see through a glass darkly. We all don't know everything all the time. And because of that, you have to get into community with people. So I would say, step outside of yourself and embrace differences and learn to walk humbly through them.
So I didn't exactly give you a preview on this one, but just a follow up to that. How will our church be better if we can do that a little bit more? Like, how will it be a richer experience for all of us?
I think that the love of Christ is something that kind of just that permeates everything. And when you start to know different types of people, there's different ideas and different feelings based on where you come from and who you are. You read the word differently, you sing songs differently, you received information differently, and finding out other people's rhymes and rhythms only helps you better your own. I think it only helps you sharpen, iron sharpens iron, but I also think it only helps you learn more in your walk. I think it helps you love better. I think especially with Walnut Hill and their commitment to this, I think that Walnut Hill will be a leader, and the youth, especially, I know the youth are awesome, and I know that they feel a lot about a lot, and that's where it starts. So I think the more you love, the harder you love, the harder it is for people to ignore that Christ is real and that you are an emissary for him.
No, that's so good. I was thinking back just as you were saying that to when I was in high school and kind of how I thought as I was heading off to college, right? And people were like, well, if you run into things, you're going to get your faith stolen from you. You got to be careful. And certainly you have to watch what influence you give in your life, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. Even if that were what we were talking about, truth wins out and the love of Jesus wins out as you encounter other things. But I think the piece we're talking about here is that even in our faith and in our approach to Christianity, right? Not bringing in oh, you just have to listen to every opinion that exists in the world so that you can decide from them. No, let's even go closer to home, right? There are different ways that we experience the love of Jesus, and we are richer when we understand them better. And so that is something I didn't understand well as a 17, 18-year-old kid graduating high school. Our 17 and 18-year-olds are way more mature than me, so they can probably be like, Kyler, stop talking about that. But that was something that was hard for me my first couple of years of college. And so bringing it back to those students, right? Those students who are graduating, those other students, they're saddened. They wish they knew what they could do or how to do something. And you and I have talked. We both know there's no like quick, easy button to hit. There's no like thing you can do that like solves everything. But my question for you is like, if somebody wanted to know where to start, they're like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what do I do? Do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, I remember. I know some of you guys are going out into the workforce. Some of you guys are going to college, right? And you're going to be surrounded, like Kyler said, with people who are going to think differently than you and believe differently than you. And it's not a matter of just kind of measuring everything and then going with whatever feels the best.
Yeah.
But what I would say is understanding that everyone's walk with Christ is different, and that everyone's walk in general is different. And so to get involved in things that don't look like the things you've been involved in before. I know that we all have our Walnut Hill kind of, our non-denominational experience, and we've got the smoke machines and the lights. But I would say, like, go to a different type of church service. If you're going to college out of state or out of city, go to a Latino church or a Black church and see how they worship, and talk to the people there. People feel things like you feel things, and they love Jesus like you love Jesus. If you're on a college campus, I went to Central, so I don't know who else in here is going to Central. Please say somebody, right?
Comment down in the chat right now.
Comment down below if you're going to CCSU. No. But the first thing I did was I joined Mosaic, which was this organization of all different ethnicities and races coming together on how we can all do better as people on a campus. Now, it wasn't faith-centric at all, but what it did was help us understand each other better.
Yeah.
We learned all types of different delicious foods, but we also just learned how life looked for other people and how to really affect change in their lives outside of ours. And the other thing I really did learn in that, and what you would learn in that, is kind of touching on the second point I made, is that differences don't have to make us bitter. Yeah. They don't have to make us separate ourselves from people, and they don't have to make us hate each other. At that point, I feel like we're stepping outside the love of Christ. And what I'll leave everyone with is a really simple verse I think everyone knows, is that faith without works is dead. It's hard to have faith in a God and not move to love on the people that he's created. Yeah. So I would say just get involved, ask the questions, read up, Google's free, as my friends would say. But just get involved and get knowledgeable and do justice, and just do right by everyone, and do right by everyone who are image bearers.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Well, thank you, Charneil, for sharing. Like we said, we're not going to hit everything in 3 questions. 4, I snuck one in on you.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a real value in having this conversation, especially on graduate night. And so thank you for being willing to come and have it.